Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Ford and I'd like to welcome you to America's Charities Google Analytics webinar today. For those of you not familiar with America's Charities, what we do is we bring nonprofit organizations and the business community together to increase social impact and engage employees primarily through workplace giving, volunteer programs, and other corporate giving initiatives. As a result of this work, we've raised over $500 million for more than 10,000 charities since our founding in 1980. As you can imagine, a great deal of marketing contributes to this success, but at the end of the day, we face the same question as most of you do, and probably why most of you are here. How can we prove our online marketing is contributing to that success? What's the ROI of that marketing? Well, that's where Google Analytics comes in. As Associate Marketing Manager, one of my responsibilities is managing America's Charities Google Analytics accounts. I've been using Google Analytics for about 8 years now, but over the last 4 years, I'd say Google Analytics has really stepped up its reporting and features. But along that time, I've been very fortunate to benefit from advice from one of America's Charities board members, who I'm pleased to introduce you to as today's guest speaker, George Weiner. George is founder and CEO of Whole Whale and an adjunct professor at NYIT. Prior to founding Whole Whale, George was the CTO of DoSomething.org. During his 7 years with Do Something, he oversaw the overhaul of the website twice, winning a Webby Award as a result, and helping to build a community of over 1.5 million teams taking action. Now, in a moment, I'll hand the presentation over to George, but first I need to take care of a few housekeeping items. To start, all of you will receive a copy of today's webinar recording and presentation. Secondly, we are live tweeting today using the hashtag you see on the screen there, DataSense, and we encourage you to join that conversation on Twitter as we're going through this webinar. And finally, we want this to be an interactive dialogue. We want you to leave this webinar with some action items you can implement right away for your organization. So please ask lots of questions. We welcome you to type your questions to us during the presentation, and we've also reserved some Q&A time at the end, which will have George and his digital strategy whaler, Julie Leary, helping answer today. And with that, I hand the presentation over to you, George.
Thank you so much for the great introduction. Yeah, I'm a very proud board member of America's Charities. I think I've been around for like over 3 years with you guys, and I've seen tremendous improvement of America's Charities traffic, in large part because of your work to increase the effective use of Google Analytics and AdWords and a whole bunch of strategies that really bring great attention to the member charities. So I'm thrilled that we're able to do this and put it out there. Again, just to reiterate, you know, the only bad question is one that you don't ask. Thank you for filling out that survey, for sharing that information with you. We've got tons of resources. Look, we've got 1 hour together. I'm excited that you've chosen to join us and to take this time. I promise it will be useful, and we're going to have a lot of breadcrumbs that you can sort of follow to find the real answers and ability to manage your AdWords, manage your analytics more effectively. So jumping in, I don't know if there's any more housekeeping items, just to check with my bosses here. With that, no, but we're ready to go. How exciting! Well done. All right. Well, 53 of us in attendance, which is great. So, you know, Whole Whale, in broad strokes, we're all about tech and impact. We're a digital agency that really is trying to work on closing the knowledge gap in the nonprofit sector and help you increase your impact. And Google Analytics is simply one of the best ways we have found to do that. With regard to my goals here, I want to increase your knowledge of Google Analytics. I want to provide a framework for using Google Analytics because, to be honest, there's more data being thrown out there by this one tool than, you know, really know what to do with. So we need this framework. And then finally, I want to improve your marketing and fundraising efforts by asking the right questions. Speaking of questions, again, feel free to either tweet us or in the chat drop questions. All right, we're going to play with technology and see how the technology gods are treating us, but how much do you know? Here's the question. I know you answered this before, but I just want to take a quick shot of where you are. So we've opened this poll, so hopefully people can find it on the side there. All right. Nice job, folks. Okay, we're going to have a lot of polls, so get used to clicking it. Early lead taken up by beginner, followed closely by intermediate. But it looks like no Google Analytics knowledge is closing in. As you can tell, I think I always had like this desire to be maybe like an announcer for horse races or something. All right, so early in the beginner, this is perfect. We've got a lot of great great. We have a lot of perfect resources. We'll be right on that edge for beginners and answering some of those intermediate questions. As we move on, the survey results. Hopefully, we can see the poll sharing. If we go back to showing my screen now, we can see, do you have access to Google Analytics is like a core question. And so when we asked this of the survey, in general, when we had access to Google Analytics, yes, 53% of folks had it, no, and then not sure. Look, if you're just getting started, you need to have access. If you can't log into Google Analytics, that's definitely going to be a problem. So when we're looking at the access, we can talk about going to google.com/analytics. That's the very basic start. Next, when we asked the survey of everybody when we sent this out ahead of time, does someone on your team review Google Analytics weekly or monthly? And so here you see that about 48% of those of you that responded were actually looking at this on a regular basis. So you can kind of use this as a benchmark. Look, we had about 100 people sign up. And so if you find yourself not utilizing, you're like, wait a minute, other people are using this. So you can use this as a way of understanding that, look, other people are using this. And then, do you have Google goals set up? So setting up goals is a little bit more of an advanced configuration. It doesn't happen out of the box when you initially install it. And so we only had a very small percent of people that had goals set up or really weren't sure. And you can see on that sort of 12% range. Moving on for this, we have the other survey results, which kind of help benchmark and understand where other people are in our group. Does your website activity relate to the success of your organization? And then in this phrasing, what we're talking about is, if your web traffic doubled, would that help your mission? Would it help your actual purpose? And so about half of you said that it would, which is great. You're in the right room. 37% not sure. Sometimes this tie can be a little bit difficult, but I'd say for 90% of the organizations we see out there, doubling your web traffic and then understanding what the relevance is going to help you. The next question we asked there is, does your organization collect more than 5% of revenue through online donations? This is just a cool benchmarking component. And 37% said yes, and some of you were 30% not sure. Look, if you're doing grassroots fundraising, your front door, your whole handshake, your real relationship with donors is actually happening through the website. So understanding how Google Analytics translates this is pretty crucial. So this is just me making the case, giving you a benchmark, giving you an idea of where we're going. Again, you're going to get access to this presentation later, and I think we're also recording it, yeah? And so you can go back and find this. In the contents, we're going to talk through the three major areas: gather, analyze, and act. We're going to walk through the setup, analytics terms, basics of metrics, of course goals, which is super critical for moving into analyze. We're going to play some games called misleading metrics, and we'll have some case studies. Okay, so what is it? I feel like this is a good question to start with, given our poll. Look, here are the fundamentals. Google Analytics is free. So I usually lead with that because, yes, it's free. It's one of the most robust web analytics tracking softwares out there. It's from Google. We can get into the why it's free, but it has been free and will remain free. So you don't need to worry about them sort of changing the rules on that. These are web analytics for your site. They're triggered by JavaScript that lives on every single page of the site. So if it's not installed on every page, it's not going to record every page. So if it's not there, it's not going to get it. What's more is, if you install it today, you're not going to get data from 3 months ago. So it's heretofore. It's once installed, going forward. Every website's code base can handle this. It takes less than 30 minutes to install. And it shows you the what, where, how, when type of activities on your website. Not so much the why, sort of the motivation behind. We need to look deeper for that. So very powerful tool. Here are those basics. So this geeky joke is the reason why I personally love Google Analytics. Here lies Heisenberg, maybe. The idea being that Heisenberg's principle of uncertainty states that you can't know the exact position and speed of a particle because the act of observation affects the observed, right? You look at something, it moves. Oh, it was there, it was there. And that can be sometimes what happens in, let's say, a focus group, or when, for example, we're maybe talking to a doctor about, how many drinks we had in a given week, and they ask us, and we're like, some number. The point is, when we ask people what they want, there's so many biases that come into play, either from the person who's asking or from the perception of wanting them to be seeking approval. Google Analytics cuts through this and tells us what's actually going on the website. Just to show you the Hawthorne effect here, just as a joke, just verbalize whatever comes to mind, says the person auditing somebody using the site, and then the person is in their mind like, look, I hope I can say the right thing so I get my $100 and a piece of slice. They're seeking to approve. All right, how do we get away from this? We're moving into the formula. This is the approach that we use for looking at the tons and tons and tons of data in Google Analytics. I'm going to show you this wheel again and again. Gather, ask questions of the data, analyze it, find insights, the parts that are bright spots, and then we learn and act so that we can move around the wheel again. We're going to see this again and again. By no means novel, but certainly important to the process, starting with gather. So let's move into a poll. I want to get a better idea. Is your site using analytics? Just to check with the people that are on this. So we're going to enable our poll here so I get a better idea of what you guys are looking at or not looking at. And so in the no clue, how do I check if you're answering that? Julie, who is answering chat currently, will show you ways of looking at source so you can see on any given website if there are there. So I'm going to see how we're doing on our poll. Okay. Oh, nice job, team. Universal Analytics is out to a very large lead with 45% respond and 26% no clue. How do I check? So Julie, let's make sure we post something of how do we check for Google Analytics code on our site into there. So we have resources. Basically, you can look at the code source of any page on your site and see if there's Google Analytics there, but Julie will have a smarter answer. Yes. And yes, outdated analytics code. Okay. Good to know. So let's close the poll and carry on. Helpful to know. Alrighty, as we are looking at getting started, I love checklists. Checklists are my best friend because they make sure that we check on the things that need to be done in the right order. So setup, look, if it's not installed, that is on your to-do list. Put it on there on the top. Your to-do list will grow. But we have to make sure that we've gone to googleanalytics.com, we've gone to google.com/analytics, gotten the code, set up an account with your organization. Again, it's all free. You give that code to your developer or website master. And they make sure it's installed, and then you can log in and see if you're actually collecting data when you log into google.com/analytics with that admin account. Staff, here's a question. Who is monitoring this? We saw about half of you are actually regularly monitoring this. Next, access. Are there tiers of access so that it's not just silos, let's say, with the webmaster or the only person who can see it? Honestly, I really think this is critical. There's no harm in having view-only access to everybody who works at your organization. While I was at Do Something, we made it a priority that everyone down to the interns, if they wanted, could log in and see view-only access of our Google Analytics so they could see what was going on. Look, many hands make light work, and this is all about distributing the knowledge and access to information so that you can better utilize it. Goals, this is a big one, and you keep hearing me talk about it. We're going to dive in deeper, but are they set up and are they defined on their site? Because this doesn't happen outside the box. Webmaster Tools, is it connected? Webmaster Tools is google.com/webmaster, and this allows us to get a bigger insight into how the Google bot crawls our site. And so when you get into search engine optimization and all those scary words, this is going to give you much deeper information on what people are searching, the keywords, and how that relates to the traffic on your site. And you can connect that on the back end to Google Analytics, so all these data end up under one roof, which makes at least me very happy. AdWords. So if you have the google.com/nonprofits AdWords grant, if you have that AdWords grant, you want to make sure that's connected to your Google Analytics so you can see the impact of the $10,000 or $40,000 a month ad grant that you have. Dashboards. Finally, we have a whole whale bundle of dashboards that we will share with you that you can automatically install and then get a better view into the different pockets of information on your site. So moving on, let's actually look at what this might seem like on the back end. So you've logged into google.com/analytics. At the top, if you click to the admin section, you're going to see that you're logged in. So in this case, I'm just showing you George Weiner. George at Whole Whales logged in, and we're looking at one of our clients' power poetry. And we can actually go in, and this is where we are at the top. Click on Admin. We can get the tracking information here inside of the tracking info area.js. We can do things like AdWords linking by clicking here. In the view, we can do user management. Click on user management and add other emails that all have access to the same analytics account, but different tiers of access. So you can kind of control who can see what, who can edit what. So you have the security level as well. So you don't want to be using all one email to access Google Analytics. So all of this can be found in the admin section. When in doubt, go to the admin section. Google Analytics terms. Okay, so here's some fun stuff. Users, these were formerly unique visitors. Around last year, midway through, they changed to using the word users instead of unique visitors. Sessions, these were formerly called visits. So now we're talking about sessions. They're trying to use more people-friendly language. Pageviews, this is what we're old school conferred, used as like hits. Basically, if I reload the page 10 times, that was 10 page views. Bounce rate, this is the percent of people that go to just one page of your site and then immediately leave. And we'll get more into that in the next couple slides. Average visit duration, think of this as the average amount of time that all of these visits or session duration are taking on your site. Exit rates, this is the percent of people that leave from any given page of your site. So let's say we're on the wholewhale.com/donate page, and everyone is exiting because they're like, wait a minute, we don't want to donate to Whole Whale. We would have a 100% exit rate of the people going there. Goal, this is defined event on your site, such as a donation or an email conversion. We'll talk more about that. And then event is a sort of mini goal that is not tracked in the same area, but also allows you to do specific event targeting. I keep using and maybe overusing the word event, but I'll use a more specific example. If you want the full glossary, you can go to wholewhale.com/Google, and I'm sure Julie will be sending up and answering all the questions that have come out from my explanation so far. But I breeze through this way too fast. I don't like it. I want to really sit down and make sure you understand some of the fundamentals here. The basics, users, sessions, and page views. This is what we're mainly talking about when we log into the Google dashboard, when we look at the Google audience. So a user is a person. Let's say it's me. I had breakfast this morning, so I had a breakfast session. I had now eggs, juice, and toast, or toast in this case. We weren't quite sure. The breakfast session consists of 3 page views, or 3 individual items here. And so you can see that one user can have multiple sessions, and inside of a session you can have multiple page views. So I want you to have this conceptual hierarchy. When you think of a session, it's more than just like, oh, they went to one page. They actually sat down and had a meal. So in this case, let's say this was my entire day, user, breakfast, lunch, dinner. This is one user recorded, 3 sessions recorded, and then, let me do a quick count, 8 page views total. Alrighty, bounces and exits. We get a lot of questions about bounces. Conceptually, a bounce is somebody who comes to just one page of your site and then immediately leaves. That's also an exit. So in here, you see this very, very basic diagram. Enter. Someone enters one page, immediately leaves. That's a bounce, and that's an exit. If we're talking about a percent, it's the overall traffic of that page with the number of bounces or exits over that. A bounce is also a good proxy for telling if someone didn't like or didn't find the page and content of your site relevant. So imagine if somebody just jumped on to the webinar right now, right? We have 60 attendees. And let's say person number 61 jumps on, and they log on and they're like, wait a minute, this is not kittens jumping on trampolines at all, and they immediately leave. Think about that as a bounce that indicates that that person didn't find what they were looking for. And so this is a proxy, not a direct reason, but a proxy for that type of behavior. Now let's say somebody enters, goes to one page, then goes to a second page on your site, that's for down here. Well, technically they didn't bounce. That's a non-bounce session. That's great. They found something interesting, they clicked, they went to another page, and ultimately all you're measuring is one exit for that final page that they were on. More fun things. Demographic information. So this is what is really exciting about adding universal analytics versus old analytics. And you're like, oh, what's the difference? Shouldn't it both work? Yeah, they both technically work, but when you upgrade to universal analytics and you enable demographic tracking, you'll actually get this sampled data, which is pretty darn accurate because Google bought DoubleClick a number of years ago, and they've got the creepy internet tracking of your cookies, which sure is creepy, but if you're using it for good, God bless you. Age. Look, we can find that for this particular audience, we have disproportionate amount of 25 to 34-year-olds. So millennials engaging with the site, we get male-female breakdown, and then we can look even more deeply into other patterns of behavior based on the demographic, which is sampled. Exciting stuff. All right, let's talk about measuring the logic model. So we have inputs, outputs, and outcomes. Inputs are what we invest. Outputs are sort of what we make and what we put out there, and ultimately outcomes are the long-term, what you expect to happen over time. So for our website, maybe we're talking about, we've got free content, free PDFs or classes, some sort of resource that we're putting out there, which then creates outputs, such as people downloading them, people signing up on different pages, or just general traffic and page views. Ultimately, we hope that the outcome will be people that are healthy, literate. It's a healthier world, informed programs. We're trying to map this out so that our Google Analytics tracking of these different events, such as a sign up for our newsletter or a download of something that is useful for an audience, can be mapped to a long-term outcome. For example, with Power Poetry, if more teens are logging on to this free online teen poetry platform and creating more poems over time, and we can measure that, well, guess what? We believe that that's going to improve the general literacy of this audience over time. This is why goals matter so much. Goals happen on this measuring side for the outputs, where inside of Google Analytics, we can tell it, hey, these are outputs we really want to know. Measure them separately. Create a separate tally when any of these things happen, and then tell me what caused those goals more directly. And this gives us a lot of power. So more on goals, because it's critical that we understand this in a deeper conceptual way. First off, let's go women's soccer. Abby Wambach smash. All right. But seriously, in a game of soccer, is the team that wins the one that holds the ball for the longest? Does time on the field really factor into this score, home versus yes? No, it doesn't matter. Only thing that matters in soccer are goals. Did we score or did we not? It doesn't matter how long you had the ball. It doesn't matter if we have high bounce rate or high traffic or high shots. Goals are the only thing that matters. And so when we set up these deliberate goals on our site, we can tell when, again, we have scoring plays and tell what led to them. I love my analogies, but let me get a bit more practical. So here's Power Poetry, powerpoetry.org. It's been a client of Whole Whales for quite some time, and they generously let us use their data for these examples. So we want to play a game. The goal is going to be tracking, remember, outputs, things that we want to see long-term happen. So more teams creating more poems. How many goals can you spot on this page? What kind of clicks, let's say? What buttons would people be clicking on that would lead to a goal that you would, let's say, in an executive report, want to see at your organization? Have you found a couple, 2, 3? So here's the home page. I don't know if you found all 5 of them. Anything with a submit button, anything that has a predictive action that suggests someone is logging in and taking action toward our outcome is something that we want to track. And we set that up in the admin section, goals, which you can see in the bottom left. And now each one of these things has a separate tally and then can track that user over time so that we can tell what brought them there, and more importantly, what's bringing them back. Fun stuff, especially if you're me and you like geeking out over this stuff. I'm sure Julie can share tons more resources on the goal tracking, and we've got videos, and Julie's nodding. She's got it covered. All right, moving right along. M&M, misleading metrics, users. So I'm going to see if you guys have been paying attention. I've only lost one person, which I like. We're at 59, but we'll see how we do on this test. So how is this possible? This is the question. In the top right of every single page on Google Analytics, you have the ability to select a time frame, which is really helpful for looking at sort of month over month or year over year. But in this case, what we did was we selected together June through August in our summary, and we got 2,000 users on the site. Then we selected month by month and individually added it up when we changed it in this time frame, and we got a total of 3,700. 1,500 users in June, 1,000 users in August, and 1,200 users in August, sorry. Wait a minute, why don't these things add up? Is Google Analytics broken? So let's go to the poll and see what we think. So we're going to go to our poll, and I'm going to wonder what we think is happening. And if we don't have a poll in this, that's totally fine, team. But I want to explain now what exactly is going on. Let's see if we've got our poll results. Okay, no worries. So we're going to move. Let's explain what's going on and is this actually broken. So cookies are used to track unique visitors over time. So what happens is when you select the entire time frame, what happens here is that one user, even though if they came back every single month, is only counted as one unique user. So this is a powerful thing to remember when you're doing reporting. I see a lot of this accident happening when people are doing annual reviews of their site and they say, all right, I'm going to look at the entire year and get a total of how many users we have. Well, that can be very misleading because you're looking at unique users. Cookies are the reason why this happens. When you go to any site that has Google Analytics, a cookie is being set for you, as well as being looked at from you. So Google Analytics sets a cookie that lasts for 2 years, unless you delete it. It also sets a short-term session cookie to tell how long that session is and what you do during that session. Crazy thing is, that is now tracking what that user does. And so if they come back and say they had a goal conversion or they had some interaction with you, and then they come back a year later and you're querying that, that's still one unique user over that period of time. I know, maybe getting a little bogged down here, but I'm just showing you the power of this, making sure you don't get confused when we're playing around with date range and just trying to directly add up numbers. Okay, so let's get into the quiz. I know we have this quiz for you because you're now experts, or at least you're like intermediate. Poll is being opened. So the question is, quiz. A user visits nonprofit.org homepage for 5 minutes, and they browse 2 pages. They leave the site for 20 minutes, return, and spend another 5 minutes browsing 2 pages. How many sessions and page views are recorded? A, 2 sessions, 4 page views. B, 1 session, 4 page views. C, 1 session, 2 page views. Or D, other. Again, we have this little diagram. Somebody jumped on there, they looked at a couple pages, they spent 20 minutes getting a beer, came back, another 5 minutes, and they even closed the browser, because I know someone's thinking, where did it go? Yeah, closed the browser, ran away, grabbed the beer, came back, because they were just analyzing stuff. So let's see how we're doing on our poll. What do we think is going on? What do we think? So we got a lot of people thinking it's 2 sessions and 4 page views, right? Because they came back, that makes sense. They looked at a couple things, they took a break. We have some old people saying it's 1 session and 4 page views. And then we've got the other. I respect that. I respect, because I'm actually trying to trick you. I'm literally trying to trick you. So I respect that. Always be wary. Always be wary. Okay, so let's find out what the answer is. I don't have the ability to do a drum roll. I gotta do. Here we go. So well done, people who chose B. 1 session for 4 page views. And, of course, 1 user. So here's the thing. I said that they're setting 2 cookies. The session cookie lasts 30 minutes. So I want to give you a real idea of how valuable this session is. When you're talking about a session, yes. So somebody had some sort of engagement, and even though they left for 20 minutes, they still came back within that window. So the door didn't close on that session cookie. So a session can really matter for how much time and engagement you're talking about in one sit down, right? It's like a meal. I sat down for breakfast. I may have, taken a quick break to read the Sunday Times, but I was still on your site. I was still having breakfast. It's important to remember what these things actually mean when you're talking about sessions, when you're reporting on your site's behavior. Okay, more misleading metrics. Average session duration. All right, quiz time. A user visits nonprofit.org homepage. They spend 3 minutes scrolling to the page, then bounces, leaves the site. How long does Google Analytics record for session duration? A, 3 minutes. B, more than 3 minutes. C, 0 minutes. I bet you didn't think you'd have this many questions coming in to you. Okay, so we've got a real battle between A and B here. 3 minutes, more than 3 minutes. Some people are saying they don't trust me. 23% on C. This is exciting. This is a regular little horse race here, neck and neck. Looks like B, more than 3 minutes, right? That kind of makes sense. Alrighty, so let's take a look at what the answer. What? Okay, looks like the C's have it. Nice job, intrepid folks, the 24% of you who chose that. But what the heck? What do you mean? 0 minutes? That's really frustrating. So it's important to understand what's going on with average session duration here. I don't know how many of you ran cross-country or track in high school or college, but what happens is Google Analytics is kind of like a coach standing there on the track with a timer. You take off on the starting line, the timer starts. So you're on the page, you're running around the track, and halfway around you're like, this is awful. I hate running track. I'd much rather get a beer. Run off, get a beer, and you never finish your lap. So the coach is standing there, and they're like, I don't know, and they log a 0. So there's no other action from when somebody starts that site engagement and they bounce from your site. No time is recorded. 0 is recorded. This is crazy because this actually 0 can factor into the session duration, which is frustrating. To prove that, one of the things that's misleading then is if you add a non-bounce segment to see your true time, which is a segment that you can add and look at people that did not bounce from your site, here's a difference just for power poetry of when I say, look, get rid of all the zeros, the people that we didn't actually know the data for, and just show me the non-bounce sessions, the people that I actually know average session duration. It's 4 times as much. That's crazy. Look at that. And so let's say we're reporting to maybe our board or maybe a foundation or somebody who we're talking about the word engagement to. If you've been reporting that your average session duration for your site is 1 minute, you've been way off. You've been underselling yourself. As opposed to saying the people that we know time for spent over 4 minutes on our site. That's nuts. That's crazy engagement. So you can see if you don't fully understand these metrics and then you report on them, you can be telling the wrong story. But I have to come back again because averages are misleading. They can also hurt kittens. And it's not cool to hurt kittens because, well, they're kittens. So even still, we might be a little misleading with the average. Anytime we see an average, an alarm bell should go up. For example, if, Mr. Bill Gates were to join us on this webinar right now, we'd all be average millionaires, and we could probably stop watching a session on Google Analytics because we could retire on a private island free of malaria. But that's not the case. But that's the assumption we make when we bundle anything together in a general average. So here is a look at the same bit of data looking at non-bounce sessions. You can see that all sessions, there's a whole bunch of those zeros factored in, and we don't get a true view of when we look at the distribution, which actually hugs around that 61 to 180 seconds, which is a lot deeper engagement than we get when we just look at an average session duration. So we can see what our super users are doing as well, the folks that spend over 60 seconds on our site, which is crazy. There's a good amount of those as well. You can find this in the audience, behavior, and engagement section. Looking at the bottom here, this is just showing you in the navigation where that might pop up. Okay, M&M, session duration. Quiz time. Okay, I know you're getting tired of this. Maybe not. I think it's a good test for our understanding. Session duration. A user visits nonprofit.org homepage, and 3 minutes scrolling through one page, then 2 minutes on the next page, then leaves the site. How long does Google Analytics record for the session duration? Polls are open. How long? 5 minutes, 3 minutes, or 0 minutes? Okay, so peek in. All right, a lot of people on 5 minutes, right? That makes sense. 2 plus 3 equals 5. I wouldn't try to trick you. I would never try to trick you. I would try to trick you. Oh boy. Okay, let's see what I've done to it this time. Okay, C is correct. What the heck? I thought we could hit. Oh boy. Alrighty, so what happened here? So you didn't fall for the full trick with 0 because you understood that, look, somebody went to at least one page and went to the next page. So the coach with the stopwatch was there. All right, I'm on the home page. I clicked to go to the second page. So I passed that coach on the track. The recorded 3 minutes. But if my last page is an exit, well, then it doesn't really know how much time on that page I spent. And so that 2 minutes is actually a question mark. Google Analytics is sitting there with the coach. So I ran one lap, the coach timed it, good. I continue running around that lap, and then I said, oh no, I don't want to run this anymore. Good to beer, no time recorded. And that's how we get that 0. Okay, so look, I've covered some of these problems. Metric underestimates, true session duration can cause issues, and a lot of it is around like misunderstanding of time sessions, which is why I like to come back to really using bounces as a proxy for engagement, because the time can be very misleading. And then finally, solutions. We can look at non-bounce visitors, and then we can rely on our goal tracking the actual actions. Like, who cares if you spend 1 minute or 3 minutes? If you convert, if you sign up for our newsletter, if you donate, spend as much time as you want or as little time as you want. But if you know the actual goal tracking, that's what matters. Another misleading metric for sites that have small amounts of traffic are internal traffic. So you may be going to your website, and your staff may be going to your website a lot during the day. This can really throw things off. We want to be setting up filters for our analytics account, or at least in an unfiltered and filtered account, to make sure that we are blocking our internal traffic. And of course, I've hit my quota here, 2 cats in 1 presentation, so I can sleep happy. So with regard to these filters, and you're like, oh, what's a filter? Julie will help you with that answer. But look, internal traffic can overestimate our traffic numbers and give us a misperception on what people are actually using on our site. So we can exclude from internal IPs by going to what is my IP, and in this applying a filter, we can create a new filter as well and filter out anybody who's working on our site to give us a better idea of what's going on. Okay, questions. What else can Google Analytics track? Well, coming back to it, goals. So I've talked about it in broad strokes, but literally, look, if you have newsletter signups, which you probably do, it can track it. Donations, yes. Sales funnels, let's say people have to click through a few things to buy or make a type of conversion sale. You can also track certain time on site thresholds, which can be helpful because that's a metric for engagement. So if someone spends over 5 minutes on your site during the session, you can set that as a goal that then sets a marker on any user that did it. Any click on the site can basically be turned into a goal, which is great. Events. So using events, we don't necessarily want to junk up goals because we only get about 25 of those to custom set up. But events, you can go to town. You can customize it. They are saved in a separate area of Google Analytics. We like to use events for outbound referral tracking. And this is where Google Tag Manager comes into play. I know a bunch of you had some questions about using Google Tag Manager. That is definitely beyond the scope of this particular webinar. However, if you don't mind watching our videos, we have a very in-depth Google Tag Manager video that will walk you through how we set up things like outbound referrals, meaning you can actually track when somebody clicks on a link to, let's say, you're a health website and you're covering things about Ebola. You can actually check and track the pages people leave your site for, assuming they clicked on something on your site. So you can look at people that left your site to go to the CDC, or left your site to maybe go and do a HIV/AIDS search. Whatever it may be in which your outbound links are, you're going to get more information by doing it. You can look at, as well, scroll depth and set up, let's say, how far down a page did somebody go on your website. And you can track video interaction that's been embedded on your website. Lots of fun things there. Our Google Tag Manager has more. Yep, our non-boring Tag Manager tutorial. Smiley face. Definitely smiley face. So look, in the example of the outbound referrals, where do people go when they click to leave our site? We get a very quick idea. This is looking at the whale's traffic. This is the event action. So I literally see the Huffington Post article that somebody clicked on, and I see the event label here, the page that they were on when they left our site. Very helpful to see who we're pointing to. Okay, so let's talk about an example. Social media traffic. Hopefully you've had this question. And note my framework. I start with a question before wandering into the analytics. Which social network sends better traffic to our website? So we're approaching with this question. And in here we see Facebook versus Twitter, the eternal battle of the Titan. Going across, I'm asking a qualitative question, which sends better. So I'm looking for behavioral metrics. I'm going to zoom in then and say, okay, well, let's look at behavior. If I'm looking at behavior, I have a bounce rate. So the higher the bounce rate, the more irrelevant the traffic is. So a bounce rate of 100% would be awful. Everybody found and left. In this case, we have very close. Twitter is slightly better because it's lower at 62%. Pages per session. is another proxy for engagement, so slightly higher, 3.05 versus 3.02, and average session duration, slightly higher on Twitter. And then we move into conversions, new user goal conversions. So this is configured for any time somebody signs up to become a new member of Power Poetry. Let me give you a second. Which do you think is more valuable here? As you look back and forth, I think it becomes abundantly clear that we care about the conversion rate. But note how confusing the bounce rate and average session duration were. They were practically the same, and if anything, they were telling us that Twitter was better, when in fact, looking at it, Facebook converts at nearly 2 times the rate. So getting those goals in place makes a crazy difference when you're analyzing data, because you saw how many issues there were with average session duration and those other proxies. There's no substitute for tracking what matters on your site. I'm going to really make this point as many times as I can, because it matters. Other cool things we can do. So assisted conversions. So on this left side, once you have goals configured, this is exactly how the navigation looks in Google Analytics. So we're clicking on assisted conversions. The question is, well, what if people don't convert on the first visit? Which is a really good question, right? Well, converting, let's say, becoming a new poet for Power Poetry. Someone's going, they check out something initially, they were sent by Facebook to the site, and then they didn't convert, but they showed up later because they remembered they had a poetry assignment and they logged on. I don't know if you ever got to watch Michael Jordan play basketball, but one of the most impressive things about him was the fact that the average amount of points that other players scored while he was on the court significantly increased because he was a fantastic passer. He was huge in terms of getting assists. So this is basically tracking assisted conversions. So Michael Jordan is sort of Facebook passing you the ball, and then later on, maybe a week later, somebody actually then comes back as a direct visitor, somebody types in powerpoetry.org, and converts, becomes a new poet. This can be tracked in Google Analytics. This is crazy. This is the first time that we can look at a multi-channel, over a period of time, conversion path for users. This is nuts. Think about the power that you now have of understanding a true customer journey instead of just assuming that people are knocking on your door and asking you to marry you on the first date. That's nuts. That doesn't happen. In this case, there's a lot of detailed analysis you can do once you have goals set up to understand how your different marketing channels, social, organic, and direct, and email, and paid, all merge together to bring together the goal conversions that you have. Okay, more questions. Demo conversion. So here's a question you may get. Do millennials like us? Are we AARP friendly? Remember when I said that once you have universal analytics, you can get the age demo? Well, we can look at the age demo, and then we can look at goal conversions and goal conversion rates. So this is fantastic, and we can look down and say, all right, not only do we get the volume of people that are millennials, but we can see that they're converting at a goal conversion rate that's literally twice that of their senior peers. And that's fine. That's Power Poetry. It's designed for teens. It would be alarming if it were the other way around, actually. We can make sure that these numbers fall in line. So this is just a different way to visualize it. You can see that significantly higher goal conversion rates for 18 to 24-year-olds, which is perfect. That is a target demo. I'm smiling. But you can see if your content is actually resonating with your audience. Finally answer that question. Exciting. Well, to me. Okay. Let's say we want to boost subscriptions. This is with regard to one of our partners, National Stroke Association. We're nice enough to share these data that we work with. So they care about subscriptions to their Stroke Start magazine. And more people subscribe to this magazine helps their overall goals of stroke awareness and support the community. In here, the question is, how do we increase that? And so for magazine subscription goals, we see the different sources of traffic that are bringing in these numbers, and we can analyze that. Oh, good. Google CPC, which is that AdWords grant, is driving in a strong amount of them. Okay, so we know that paid traffic is winning. Nice, but so what? We can dig into that by clicking on it and getting an idea of what happens when we dig in and then actually see the different keywords that are driving that. So we're giving you now a look at which keywords are driving the most conversions, i.e., what are bringing people into the site when they search different keywords online. And we see that free magazine subscriptions are actually drawing in a lot of it. These are people interested in magazine subscriptions that they can get for free, which these are, and they convert very well. So action that we ultimately may take is tell the marketing team to pursue these for higher quality traffic potentials in our marketing, in our partnerships, potentially even in the writing that we have for our site. Okay, all right, we're doing well on time. Just doing a quick check-in. So why am I showing you a gratuitous shot of Brad Pitt? Well, one, because you paid attention for this long and you deserve it. And two, because Moneyball was an awesome example of how the Oakland A's leveraged something called sabermetrics, looking at the metrics that actually mattered toward winning games, and they were able to compete with a budget that was a fraction that of the big players out there like the Dodgers and like the Yankees. They were able to compete at a national level with a fraction of the budget because they found out that, look, the only thing that really matters for points is really, I think it was on-base percentage was the leading factor, and that's what they hired for on their team. So I want you to find your sabermetrics. I want you to have fun with it, and then set them up with goals. So how do we act? We've talked about gathering. We've talked about analyzing some of the data, but how do we actually turn this into action? Nice, but so what? I want to start with dashboards. So we have a free nonprofit starter pack for Google Analytics. To do this, you can go to wholewhale.com/Google, and there's a quick button to download that, or you can go into your dashboards setting on the left side, new dashboards, because this is where it's going to show up, and click Import from Gallery, and if you search for Nonprofit Dashboard, we are the #1. If you like what you see, please leave us a rating. I think a bunch of people have, but it's nice of you. Thank you. So what are dashboards? Why do they matter? I thought Google Analytics was a dashboard. Well, it is, but it's also like, you know, a kid in a candy store. You get very, very overwhelmed very, very quickly. So what we sought to do in this was create different types of dashboards with audiences in mind. So once you import this, you're going to get from that list an AdWords performance dashboard, a demographics dashboard, executive dashboard, mobile, SEO, social. So we don't want you to have to look at all of these, but there are different members of your team that might find these interesting. So we'll stay with the executive dashboard. And what this does is it lets us cherry pick, go through, and choose the most meaningful metrics and displays from your analytics account so that you can actually see what's going on in one clean spot. What's more, that's fun, you can set this up for emails yourself or someone on your team by clicking this email button up here. And just remember, when you do that, it's automatically selecting whatever date range that you have up there. By default, it's 30 days. Usually, if you do the past month versus previous month, it'll give you better information. So you click that email, and suddenly, we can set up a regularly occurring dashboard that's going to email out to whoever, maybe someone who cares, at your nonprofit. In this case, you can see that we've set this up weekly to send off on Mondays, and this is going to be active for 6 months. I'd encourage you to put something more fun in the subject line, like "Open this, you lazy bones," or something funnier. So that was a quick Google Analytics life hack to make sure that you're paying attention and building up feedback loops. All right. Hopefully this is looking familiar. Gather, ask questions, analyze, insight, act. But now our focus is donors. I know that many of you are interested in increasing your fundraising, and that's why you joined the call, because you were promised that, and I want to deliver that. So here are some common questions that I'd imagine asking, and that we've seen our clients ask. Question: where are our donors coming from? In this case, if you look to the left, I've navigated here by going to Conversions and then Goal Flow. I've selected the Goal Flow, which is donations, and I can tell the various paths from sources of traffic where people came from. So in this case, you also see that we have a total goal value, a goal conversion rate, total abandonment rate, and then a total conversions of 1,031. These are anonymized data, and we can see that most of them are coming from Google. Some are from direct, which means people that typed in the website directly and went directly to the site. Charity Navigator, very interesting, and a reminder to say, oh my gosh, when was the last time I logged into Charity Navigator and checked what people are saying about our organization? People do research on platforms like that, and this can provide very, very important insight, especially when you realize maybe that your 990 is out of date, staffing's out of date, or things like that from major sources don't reflect that. So you can find insight from there and drive those actions. So you saw how I kind of went down that path there. Again, I gathered information. I'm asking this question. One of the places, Charity Navigator. When was the last time you logged in? That is an action. Go log in, check out Navigator, and make sure it's pointing and saying the right things about your organization, because we're actually seeing traffic from there. Question: what path did they actually take? All right, so we're drilling in, and now we're looking at that multi-channel funnel. Like, obviously, people didn't just come in and immediately ask to marry us. In here, we're looking at the conversions, and then under the multi-channel funnels, top conversion page. So on that left, you see where we've got the information on how to navigate here. Again, we have our total values, but here we're getting an actual story, and it's important to think about this as a story. The number one path that people are coming in when they donate is somebody types in some sort of search through organic, and then they come back later as a direct visitor. Very interesting, and you can immediately see the importance of organic search because it pops up as number 3 and number 4. So in number 3, somebody does a search such as teen poetry, and finally it may be great poetry organizations maybe that come back. As you move down, you can see the importance of other things such as referral traffic, which is people that are referred by, let's say, a charity navigator or another partner site that sends inbound traffic to you. But you realize that people are doing research around that. So they may come in with referral, or they come in on organic search and they come back with referral. So tell yourself that story. Get a better idea of how your marketing factors are playing together. One thing I've noticed in this, I'd be surprised that there's not more email conversion. So there should be potential email referral in here, but it may be coming off as direct traffic. So that may be an issue, saying like, hey, I really think that email should be one of our closing factors here in driving donations in terms of assisted conversions. Next question. What about donors by location? So like where they are in the world. In this case, I'm in the audience section of our Google Analytics view, and I go down to geo and then location, and I get this awesome little density chart, which more often than not follows along the lines of urban populations. So don't be too confused by it, although this does make a nice little image for us to show our board. What I care more about is actually breaking down where our message is resonating, where are people actually converting. So I actually get a breakdown of city by city when I factor it in, city by city, and the exact goal conversion rates that I'm getting for our donations. And I can see that very interesting. We're resonating twice as effectively in San Francisco than we are in places like Philadelphia and Boston. Why is that? Or what are we doing right in Chicago that we're not doing right elsewhere? Why is New York lower than Chicago in this case? There's bunches of questions that this may lead to that relate to how your team is doing outreach. Maybe you just did a targeted mailing, and then you can actually see how messages are resonating. Or maybe that you need more people that represent these different areas. Oh, of course Los Angeles is performing well. We had that hero of the week who was from Los Angeles. Wait a minute. Are we choosing too many of our users from one area of the country, thus isolating other areas? See the questions that come up. After I do the analysis, I'm finding insights. Where are the bright spots? Where am I surprised that things are performing so well? And then what are the actions I'm taking? All of this can be found once you set up the proper goals and have the right understanding of what you're looking at when you're on your analytics. This stuff gets me really excited. I hope you guys are excited right now, because all of these ideas are literally sitting in your backyard right now if you're able to jump in and ask these types of questions and move through analysis. Finally, let's get inside our own house a bit here. How is our donation funnel doing? Maybe we had a new redesign, or maybe we have one of the worst donation forms known to mankind. Well, we can actually test what it's truly costing us. Inside of funnel visualization and conversions under goals, if we set up a multi-step funnel, so let's say we have a /donate page and then a donate/second step page, or different screens that get us there, we can tell the drop-off rates of what happens. So in this case, when somebody enters our donation amount page, the first page, we have a drop-off of about 90%. Ouch. And then on the second page, we have another 90% drop-off. This is pretty normal. So hopefully you're not too surprised. Every single extra page you send people to, you're losing about 90% of them, which is nuts. Imagine if you were able to just make this one step. The improvement would be fantastic. Suddenly you'd be converting 130 instead of 10 people if you were able to put it on one page. So what is the action? Well, maybe we consider an action like, let's change our donation process. And I rarely make universal statements like this, but I'm making this statement right now. If you're talking about a design here between the left and the right, less always gets more. Fewer pages and fewer fields will deliver you more money. The data have proven this out again and again. If you walk away with nothing else, know that this is ultimately true and has been proven out and will be proven on your website. Less always gets more. Fewer pages, fewer fields equals more money. Look at this page. Which do you imagine is going to convert better? Which do you think was the funnel we were just looking at? The final thought here, as we move to close and just take some questions, right? Numbers are people too, and I think we forget that. So how we talk about numbers internally can actually impact whether or not we use them. I know the data is boring sometimes. Obviously not to you because you've stuck it out for this hour in the middle of your day. Kudos to you. You're that much smarter. But I want you to think about how I can present the following data in these ways. There are 315 newsletter signups during the month of September, an average of 10.5 per day. Okay, that's one way of saying that information. How about this? In September, 10.5 people per day told us they care about the cause and they want to hear more about our work. Okay, I get a rate of acquisition. And finally, during September, 315 signed up to hear more from us. This should lead to 31 new donors in the next 6 months. Which gets you more excited about the fact you had 315 newsletter signups? Well, it depends on the organization, but I'm willing to say that if you knew that newsletters convert to new donors and you're making the case that people actually care about you, it's a lot better than our dry statement number 1. So think about how you're presenting these data and the types of action you want to happen as a result. This is our good old wheel one more time that you can apply toward any question, whatever you want to put in the middle, targeting at what are we trying to solve for. And you always remember to get to that act phase. We didn't cover a lot, and that's because we only had an hour, but I think it was a very information-packed hour, and Julie has been very, very busy answering all these manager questions. We have tons of resources. We give them away for free. The tag manager we talked about, assisted conversions and campaign tagging are all things that you can sort of take as breadcrumbs. And finally, look, question Q&A if you didn't have it. I don't know, Julie, if there's anything that you feel like I could rant on. She's giving me the like, hey, I have this under control. You don't have to worry. That's great. Oh. Wow. Offline to online. So I like online to offline. It's easier to measure, but offline to online. Let me think of it. Yeah, so if you're thinking about, let's say you have a public service campaign. You're doing something with like an ad counselor or something in outdoor advertising. You can use campaign URLs to tag where people are coming from. So you tag that in a way that you're passing information quietly to Google. Otherwise, you're just going to get a bunch of direct traffic. So for instance, we had one client, Move for Hunger, moveforhunger.org, really great organization that raises food from getting the people that move you, normally the movers, to donate your food. And they put out different campaign URLs that they shortened and made look pretty. But they put out different campaign URLs to two different types of marketing, and they saw a significant improvement to one over the other because they're putting this on the side of boxes and really getting it out there. So the way they were messaging was able to be tested externally from on-the-ground type of visual placement on boxes to online engagement. Tough question. I like that. And Julie's going to send you the campaign URL tracking so that you can do that like a ninja. I think we even have a video about that. Oh, it's in the works. Wait for it, everybody. The video is coming. Any other questions that I can talk through? You know, I have some more of these resources up here. I talked about some. We have an online course that will help you with the Google AdWords for nonprofits. And spoiler alert, one coming out about social media metrics, which, you know, will be awesome. Okay. I think we can move to a final thank you unless there's other questions.
Well, I thank you, George and Julie. Really appreciate you sharing your time and expertise today. Really great information. George, every time I hear you speak, I just have so many ideas going through my head, and I feel like, oh my gosh, I have so much work to do on a Google Analytics account. But it's always great information that you share, and I hope everyone who was on the webinar today shares that same idea and is ready to go out there and just get to work and improve their marketing efforts. that's all the time we have today. America's Charities does have a webinar taking place in March. We're still nailing down the exact time and date, but if you subscribe to our newsletter, if you go to www.charities.org/subscribe, we will send you an update when we have that date. Our next webinar will be focused on volunteer management and best practices to get everyone ready for April National Volunteer Month, so stay tuned for that. And with that, thank you everyone, and